When the majority of us hear about Egypt, we think about the pyramids and the ancient civilization that inhabited the city itself. Egypt was rumored to be a beautiful oasis once full of life, but the ancient civilization disappeared and didn't leave much behind but the desolate ruins. However, despite the fact that the place is a desert, there have been some things uncovered and secrets discovered. With that said, take a look at these 5 most mysterious creatures caught in Egypt. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Damascus Goat. When the footage of this bizarre-looking thing went online, many people thought that it wasn't real. And with a face that only a mother could love, who could blame these people? Actually, the creature looks terrifying and is unlike anything we've ever seen, probably you too, unless of course you've seen this animal before. In fact, some well-known video website out there was advertising the creature as the world's ugliest animal. This crazy-looking animal is not the spawn of Satan, although it could be, but it is actually what's called a Damascus goat. This weird-looking creature has an unusually longer neck than the average goat, and it has a really short snout and a smashed face, or as some have said, no face. To say that this weird-looking beast is ugly is an understatement. The goat has a serious underbite. Despite it having all these abnormal traits, it turns out that it's a prize-winning species that's native to Cyprus, Lebanon, and Syria, and it's highly sought after and coveted for its milk. Apparently, the milk is of superior quality. The controversial thing about this goat is that it's the product of many generations being bred that are much different from the average Damascus goat. In Egypt, they have competitions to breed this type of goat, and the contests are very popular. What's interesting is that in 2008, the breed of goat made headlines, and a particular goat named Or won the title of, quote, the most beautiful goat. That's proof that saying beauty is in the eye of the beholder is absolutely believable. While trying not to be too mean to the critter, some have said that the animal looks like something that belongs in a Star Wars movie. And by the way, the goat is very much admired and highly sought after. Even so much that sometimes they're sold as exotic pets and aren't kept as your average farm animals. One report online that was found stated that this particular breed of Damascus goat can fetch more than $65,000 for a single goat, and one was brought by a rich Arab for almost $70,000. Number 4. The Ghost Horse. In 2011, there were riots and unrest in Egypt, and you could say that things were a little out of control. There was a giant riot in Tahrir Square during the fiery protests of the Egyptian Revolution that was going on, and there were many different film crews there filming the events that were taking place. It was those cameras that caught something very unusual. A mysterious, pale green figure that looked like some kind of ghost rider suddenly appeared during the protests at night in the square. In between the multitudes of protesters and around the barricades, the pale green figure appeared, and it eerily looked like a rider sitting atop a horse that's in medieval-like armor, or barding as it's called. Despite people saying it surely must be some kind of light reflection or some kind of optical illusion, the footage very clearly shows the ghostly green outline of a horse and rider galloping. The very first thing that came to people's minds is that the rider was one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. The video and photos went viral, and the internet became ablaze with chatter that the, quote, pale rider made his presence known in the square, perhaps as a warning that the end was coming. Experts began to look at the footage but couldn't come up with an explanation, saying that perhaps there was some dirt on the lens or that it was some kind of reflection. The interesting thing is that just days before this happened, 70 ancient metal books were found in Jordan hidden in a cave and were the earliest known ancient Christian documents ever found. And even though many people say the footage isn't real and many will say that it's a reflection or something on the camera, the question remains. What is it a reflection of that suddenly appears on the footage? Not to get religious or biblical here, but it is still worth mentioning in case you don't know who the Pale Rider is that people believe is in the video. He's one of the 4 horsemen from the Book of Revelations who is the bringer of death and the forerunner of hell on earth. Number 3. 9-foot alien giants. before we begin this one, let's talk a little about the Anunnaki for a minute. If you're not sure what or who the Anunnaki are, we'll bring you up to speed. The Egyptians had many gods or deities, and these Anunnaki are one of these groups who appear in some mythological traditions of ancient Assyrians, Akkadians, Sumerians, and Babylonians. However, descriptions of how many of these Anunnaki there were and what role they played in ancient Egypt are inconsistent and contradictory. What most people have heard from a lot of conspiracy groups online is that the Anunnaki are supposed to be the inhabitants of a planet called Nibiru, which is the 12th planet, and for many years has been the object of a planetary cataclysm in which Nibiru is supposed to collide with the Earth and in the process destroy the Earth. These group of gods from Mesopotamian cultures were a bit different from humans in that they supposedly had elongated skulls and were giants that stood over 9 feet tall. And so, now you know who the Anunnaki are, and we can get to the rest of the topic. A YouTuber was poking around looking at some sites in Egypt, pyramids and odd-looking buildings, when he stumbled on an image of what appears to be 2 giant men who were walking towards each other on Google Maps. In 2016, it was the latest in wacky conspiracy theories that popped up online. It's said that the image was close to the Giza pyramids, but close is definitely a relative term here, depending on who you're talking to. The Google Earth image does show 2 giant men who were walking towards each other from opposite sides of the street, begging the question, did Google Earth satellites photograph 2 Anunnaki giants? It is mentioned by the YouTuber that the 2 men's waists are taller than the roofs of the cars that they're walking near. Of course, there was all kinds of speculation as to what people were seeing, with one person mentioning that living close or inside of one of the pyramids is good for your health, and that these were probably 2 brothers who were raised near the pyramids. As we all know, tall means healthy, right? I think that's how it... Okay. Scott Waring also joined the debate and said that leaked UFO documents say that these are giant aliens working secretively with the government, who have giant underground bases. We wonder what that guy talks about in his spare time. Any guess is as good as the other. So, do you think that these are really Anunnaki giants? Or a trick of the satellite camera? Let us know what you think in the comments. Number 2. A taka carcass. In 1950, something very mysterious washed up on an Egyptian beach, which ended up being one of the most controversial oceanic mysteries in history. Well, besides our Megalodon videos. But after hearing about this story, you just might believe that the prehistoric shark is hiding out there somewhere waiting to be found. This story, however, is about something that was called an ataka. Let's figure out what that was. The carcass of this animal washed up on shore, and it wasn't any kind of creature that we knew about. It somewhat resembled a gargantuan whale. However, this whale, or giant whale-like creature, had 2 long tusks extending out from both sides of what appeared to be its mouth. We're talking about elephant or walrus-like tusks that were huge. If there's one real bizarre cryptid out there with actual proof, this is the king of them all. In January of 1950, the day after what was called a horrific storm which pounded the banks of the Gulf of Suez, Egyptian authorities discovered a gargantuan carcass that was decomposing on the beach. Not knowing what it was, a team of scientists were sent to the area in an attempt to reveal what the creature was. The giant sea creature was definitely whale-like, and it even had a blowhole on the top of its head like all whales do to breathe. However, this creature had 2 giant tusks that protruded from either side of its giant mouth. The experts that were sent to the area tried their best to identify the creature, but nothing like it had ever been seen or cataloged before. This led some of those experts to believe that what they were seeing was the whale's lower jawline, or baleen, that was exposed, which created the illusion of tusks. As we previously stated, this still remains a mystery, because the evidence is now long gone and the only thing that's left of the whale are black and white grainy photos, which at the time were probably the best photos you could get. However, there have been some other remains like this found, such as the Tecoluda sea monster from Mexico, some creature called the Suwaru Island devilfish, and the Mentigi monster. With only 5% of the oceans explored, we might be seeing a species that stays in the deepest parts of the ocean and only appears when washed up, deceased on beaches all over the world. Number 1. A jewel bush dog. Also known as the Kelbel Kela, which means bush dog, This creature is a cryptid canine, and there have been many reports of the creature in Egypt, Africa, and even in the Sahara Desert. This is a particularly scary creature because many claim that it's a phantom, which isn't a dog or wolf at all. It simply takes the form of either as it sees fit. From accounts of sightings from different people, the creature is said to be 2.5 feet tall and weighing about only 30 to 50 pounds. As you may well know, the continent of Africa has a number of many canine species roaming around. This African wild dog is claimed to only have 4 toes, and it's not known who got close enough to count those toes or why they didn't snap some photos of the creature, but you know, whatever. The toes are also webbed, and the dog has very thick and rough crimson-colored skin. The very first sightings of these creatures began in 1928 and were recorded by an explorer named Theodore Monod. However, it was the sighting by the locals known as the Tuaregs near Mauritania, nailed it, that really blew up this cryptid in the public eye. These people say that they've known about the elusive cryptid since they can remember. And although many of these creatures vanish into mythical lore, there are legends such as this that are based on the truth. Of course, science isn't going to accept anything until someone actually captures one of these creatures, as it shouldn't. But since this animal is not known to attack humans, it might be very difficult to prove its existence. It's said that the last sighting of these animals was back in 1992, and there haven't been any other confirmed sightings since then. With that said, it could be possible that the creature has become extinct. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top 5ers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, Americano, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There'll be a link in the description, so check it out, as well as our other